to a Hope 1032 podcast.
As followers of Jesus, in whom all things were made, we acknowledge the Darug people as the traditional custodians of the country of where this podcast is recorded. We acknowledge their continuing connection to the land and waters, and thank them for protecting this land and its ecosystems since time immemorial. We pay our respects to elders past, present, and future, and we extend that respect to all First Nations peoples listening today.
Hope Book Club with Georgia Free. Because life's just better with a book.
Hi, I'm Georgia, and welcome to episode 75 of the Hope Book Club podcast, where we chat about books from a hope-filled Christian lens. I'd love for you to join our Facebook group. First up, Hope Book Club. We have almost 500 members now, so we have plenty of fantastic chats on there. So make sure to check us out on Facebook, or you can head to the show notes. Today's episode is going to be a little bit of a different one as we cover a genre that I have never heard talked on the podcast about before, at least while I have been host: psychological thrillers. Now, I know for some this is an automatic no. You hear the word thriller and you're out. Maybe you feel like as Christians you shouldn't read them. I'm not here to tell you what to do or not to do, but we will be having more of a deeper conversation about it later in the episode, and you can decide for yourself. But if this episode is not your cup of tea, feel free to scroll on, and we'll be back probably to some lighter topics next week. Joining me to discuss, though, is my colleague and bestie, Elle Robertson. Welcome to the Hope Book Club.
Thank you for having me, Georgia. I'm actually so excited to be here.
Whenever I see you in the hallway, you are always like, I'm not a reader, Georgia. I don't read. I read like 2 books a year. I'm not a reader. Can I just say first off the bat, if you can read, you're a reader. So you are a reader in my book. Congratulations.
Yes. Thank goodness.
Can I just say, I want to ask you though, what your relationship was like to reading growing up. If you don't read much as an adult, did you used to read a lot as a kid?
Yes. I used to read a ton as a kid. Andy
Griffiths?
Andy Griffiths.
Yeah.
Just kidding. Just tricking. Loved him. Read entire book series a lot as a child, primary school. And then it really dwindled off when they started telling me I had to read in high school. And I was like,
I won't be doing that. Thank you so much. And then did that just kind of continue to dwindle as you reached adulthood, or were you able to kind of get back into it a little bit?
Well, to be honest with you, no, it really dwindled. I only recently, in the last couple of years, have picked up books again.
Is that because of COVID?
No, actually. Not because of COVID. I actually don't think I read in COVID.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. Okay, so why the switch now? Why did you decide to pick up a book?
I did set it as one of my New Year's resolutions. I think, is it a millennial thing where I've got to be doing something.
You got to be always optimizing your life and never alone with your thoughts.
That's exactly right. Always optimizing your life is spot on. And I was like, how can I optimize my life? At least I need to read a book a year. And that was my goal. Just 1 book a year. Start easy. I used to get it done in the first 2 weeks of January and then tick it off because nothing better than in the new year ticking off one of your resolutions 2 weeks into January.
Yeah. It's like writing a to-do list and the first thing you write is write a to-do list.
Yeah, that's right. Because now, if everything else fails, I'm an overachiever.
Amazing.
I've done it.
I love that so much. And you're like, I don't need to do anything for the next 11 months.
That's it.
Optimizing done.
I'm pretty much, that's exactly right. But then after that, after I'd done the 1 book, I would find myself in a reading mood that I had kind of gone into 2 books or 3 books at the beginning part of the year without noticing it. And particularly when I go on holidays, I love to pack a book.
Yeah, okay. When you go on holidays, do you have a particular – obviously, you're a fan of psych thrillers. I know you are.
Yes.
Is that the genre that you gravitate towards?
Yes, and dystopian.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, why? Why those two?
I like something that's a page turner, where I'm desperate to get to the next page because I can't fathom where is this going next and I generally find it within those 2 genres.
That's very interesting. And I think when you're on holidays and you feel like you have a very limited time to read, it's like, I'm on holidays for a week. I have a week to finish this book because I get back to regular schedule programming. Yeah. The optimization is done.
Once again, I'm an overachiever.
I love that so much. I also want to ask quickly before we get into the book, you Christian growing up. Were you a Christian growing up?
I was, yes.
Did that influence the type of books that you read at all? Were you come from the kind of family that know Harry Potter? Did you tend to go towards C.S. Lewis like a lot of people did? What was the situation?
Well, look, to be honest with you, yes, I have a vivid memory of me and my best friends when I first became a Christian around the age of 12 snapping on my Harry Potter DVDs because that was a no. Right. Now I love Harry Potter. All that to say is that interesting question that you ask, because I'm going to go super real for a second. I do think that in my high school years, the reason why I strayed away from reading novels and books that I so much enjoyed in my primary years is I did, to be honest, have a bit of a guilt association that if I was going to invest time into reading, it should be the Bible. And I was reading the Bible, but anytime I picked up a different book, I thought, well, if I'm going to spend time reading, I could be spending my time reading the Bible. So it did mean that instead of reading anything, I would just put a novel down.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Why the change?
Maybe a millennial thing where I'm like, how am I getting better as a person? I need to be a reader. I need to read something that's going to excite me. And and then one of my friends I think had recommended a ton of books, and as a child I did kind of gravitate towards like things that kept me on the edge of my seat, and so I was like, maybe I'll enjoy that now, and I do.
Love that. Okay, let's get into the book. What have you brought for me today? Please show the camera. Playing Nice by J.P. Delaney. Now, I have heard of this author before.
Right.
They're a New York Times bestselling author. I know they've done a bunch of thrillers.
Right.
Tell me, what is this book about?
Okay, first of all, can I say to you that I got this book from the Hope Book Club Library.
Oh, yes. The recycling tub that we have. The recycling tub.
And this was before I went on my last holiday, and I said, recommend me some, and you guys just threw a whole heap at me, and this was one of them, and I read it.
I'm so glad. That actually is one of my favorite things when I recommend books to people and they love them. That's my love language, so that makes me very happy.
I feel very loved.
This synopsis, though, I'm guessing is going to be much less lovey-dovey because it's quite the ride, I understand. Okay. Lay it on me.
Let me paint you a picture. Okay, I have a question for you, and I'm going to position it in the way as if when you are reading this as a reader, right, this is the position you're put in as a reader.
Okay.
One of the main characters of the book, him and his wife have a son. He is 2 or 3 years old. They've created memories and a life and all of that with him. One day there is a knock at the door from a stranger saying, the child that you have raised all of these years is not actually yours.
Oh, no.
And I have your child.
Oh, is this a switched at birth?
This is a switched at birth situation. Okay, so the question that you're presented with as a reader,
please don't ask me.
is, would you want to switch back?
Firstly, that is an impossible question. It is midday on a Friday, Elle, please.
I told you I was going to bring it today.
Okay, secondly, I'm not a parent.
Nor am I.
So I don't even want to imagine the shock, the emotion surrounding that. Let me talk through the two options, I guess. Okay, option one, if you switch the babies.
The plot is going to thicken, just as you know.
So option one, you decide to make the switch.
Okay.
You have essentially, that child is biologically yours, but that child is a stranger. How old are they?
They're 3.
3?
Yeah.
Oh.
So you've got 3 years of meeting this child's every need, creating bonds and memories, loving this child as if it's your own flesh and blood. And here comes another child that is actually your own flesh and blood. Do you swap back?
Okay.
And the logic is like, maybe they're young enough for us to be able to swap back.
And that's what I was thinking. That's why I asked the age, because it's like 3, I think, I don't remember much of when I was 3, but I probably remember a little.
3.
And as they say, the body keeps a score. Your body would remember that traumatic event.
Yes.
However, if the children grew up and they found out that their parents knew when they were 3 years old that they were switched at birth and didn't tell them or do anything about it, I don't know. I don't know what I would do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well,
please don't ask me anything like that ever again.
Okay, well, it gets worse. I'm about to ask you something worse. Okay. Then you find out that your actual birth child, the one that you did not raise, has severe disabilities. And the family that is raising your child at the moment is financially much better off than you are.
Oh, it's impossible. No.
It's impossible.
No, it's impossible. I'm not even going to entertain that. Okay.
Don't entertain it. The book entertains it for you.
Okay, so basically the whole plot is what? Them trying to figure it out?
Well, like...
Because I assume if it's a thriller, something terrible is going to happen. There's twists, right?
How did this happen? How did the switch happen? The beginning of the book, you're obviously like, what on earth is going on? And you're put in this position where you're literally, your heart is being pulled in different directions, being like, what would I do if I was in this situation? Because you can see the parents thinking through this, being like, what is the best option for us here? If I want to take my biological child back, I may not be able to provide for them in the way and give them the quality of life that the other family might be able to give them. Mm-hmm. It's just insane. So you follow that along. Obviously, there is a twist in the story as to how this all happens.
There are deeper, darker problems.
More sinister problems. We can explore those if you want, or we cannot.
Okay. We can explore some of them as long as it's not spoilers. No spoilers.
No spoilers. We don't have to go past them, but it does introduce the concept of, a personality type, which is the psychopath. Diagnosed psychopathy.
Is that one of the parents?
One of the 4 parents has diagnosed psychopathy.
Did we know that before? Or this has come to light?
This has come to light.
Oh, goodness me.
Which, and the plot thickens and there is like things that are slowly revealed that you're like, what is going on here? The way that it's painted is so, so interesting. I learned a lot about the diagnosed psychopath in this because there's actually a bit of like medical background as to what traits qualify you to be a psychopath. And I mean, they're living amongst us.
Well, no, 100%. And I think there is a very real thing, I think, with crime shows and true crime, that kind of phenomenon that's come out in the past probably 5-10 years, that the words like psychopath and sociopath are thrown around loosely when really it's a medical diagnosis.
Yes.
And comes with a strict set of criteria.
Yes. And so within that, like obviously because they're completely mainstream, these people who have like psychopathic tendencies.
Of course.
And for the most part, it takes a long time to diagnose someone who is a psychopath. And you can be around them consistently, even like some of your closest friends and family, and not pick up that they have psychopathic traits because the kind of traits are manifested in amongst other things. So they are extremely charismatic. They are extremely easy to get along with. People are drawn to them and they have really infectious personalities. And then like other little things come out, like how manipulative they can be and how they get their own way. But those things take a while for you to recognize because you're so engulfed and drawn in by the other really positive qualities that they have that you write off those other negative qualities thinking like, okay, yeah, but that's okay because they've drawn you in.
So how did you feel while reading all about that? Did you feel uneasy? Like how did you kind of feel in your body? Because for me, I would be like, as a highly anxious person, I don't know if I could be constantly reading about that because I'm like, I'd just become suspicious of everyone.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I was like, oh my gosh, you know who has these tendencies? I could point out parts in like people around where I'm like, interesting about that, interesting. Not saying that they are because you have to be diagnosed. I was going to say, do you find that
help? That's probably not helpful.
Look, I'm not a qualified psychologist who can diagnose things, but definitely makes you hyper aware of like characteristics or tendencies that you're like, wow, that aligns with really well. Or that personality has like a striking resemblance to something I've seen or something I've watched or someone I know or whatever it may be. One of the most interesting parts in the book is there is a test that I think it was like the police or a medical test that they use to diagnose whether or not they have psychopathic tendencies. And you do it's a scoring system. There are actual questions in the book with the scoring system. And I made me and my husband do it to see where we scored on the scale. Great news. spoiler alert, none of us are psychopaths.
Fantastic.
So
It's very intense. And I think it's also important to note here that just because you have psychopathic tendencies does not make you a criminal.
Correct.
Or sociopathic tendencies. Can we say that? Obviously,
no.
books like these take this stuff to the extreme.
Correct.
And I do want to have a chat with you about these kinds of books in general and pick your brain about psychological thrillers and actually why you like them so much. I haven't read that many. I've read a few kind of mainstream ones. Gone Girl, Girl on the Train, The Silent Patient.
Did you enjoy?
Love them. Love them.
Okay.
Love is a strong word.
Right.
I devoured them, but I felt uneasy. I can't read them all the time. It needs to be like one that I read once in a blue moon because I'm probably thinking about it for the next, 2 to 5 business years of my life.
See, when you said business, I thought you were going to say days.
No, years. Years. Why do you think you gravitate towards this genre so much? You already said because it's the page turner situation. I totally understand that. Why do you think we as a society are so hung up on books like this? Because they fly off the shelves.
They do. Look, I can only speak for myself. True story. Growing up, my dad is a registered psychologist. This is a true story. Judge it how you will. But when I was a young child, my dad used to study criminology. He specialized in criminal psychology. Maybe that's why I have an affinity for it, is because I grew up on with that being a thing. And it was not, it was based from psychology. It was like, this person grew up like this. It may have led them to think like this and that kind of thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't think everyone has a personal affinity like you, but I did do some research as to how, why I should say, society in general actually really likes these kinds of books.
I'd be keen to hear it.
Number one, and I think we can speak for the last 5 years, books like these for many are just pure escapism.
Yes.
Because it's so far removed from your actual reality that it's like, well, nothing like this is ever going to happen to me.
That's right.
So you're able to just kind of step outside your own world for a second and just be completely immersed in someone else's world. And when we have things like a pandemic going on where all of a sudden so many of our worst fears realize and we just want to step out of the reality for a second, it's actually, ironically, books like this that can provide that escapism. And on that note, it can actually almost highlight the goodness and safety in your own life. It sounds so bizarre.
No, good point.
But it's...
as a juxtaposition.
Yeah, because you're like, well, at least... it sounds so terrible, but it's like you read these terrible stories and it's like, well...
at least it's not that.
I might be struggling through these things, but at least it's not that. At least it's not that. And as you said, I think these thriller books also give us that kind of adrenaline rush without us being in those dangerous situations. So... you want that kind of thrill when you read. You want it to be a page turner. You want to feel the emotions, but you don't want to actually have to go through these terrible things.
That's right.
So that's a way for you to get that, I guess, that kick, that thrill. But also I think, and this is the main one for me personally, is when I read books like these and even crime fiction books, just regular mysteries, it gives you a sense of control because even though you don't know what's going to happen necessarily, it's very formulaic. It starts with a crime. You suspect all the characters. It's going to have a twist near the end, and then it's all going to be wrapped up.
Yes.
Right? And I think when you go into a reading experience, whether it's wholesome or not, you want to be able to kind of know what you're getting yourself into, especially if the world feels unpredictable. So they're the kinds of things. Research is definitely, shows that it stems from a combined desire for control but also new experiences and stories. Because you're not going to want to read something that you've read before.
Yes.
But even if it's just like a slight twist.
Yes.
And I think now that brings us to the point in the episode where we bring faith into it, which is so bizarre because when you read books like this, sometimes it can feel like the furthest thing from Christianity ever. And I know that a lot of people who listen to the podcast, a lot of people who've even been on the podcast struggle to justify reading these kinds of books personally because it's like, I don't want to be feeding into that. You look at, Philippians 4, whatever is right, whatever is noble, whatever is true. And a lot of people take that quite literally into the content they consume, which there is no judgment here. If that is what works for you and your family, absolutely go through that. Does that kind of come into play when you read? I know that you said you had that guilty conscience growing up and now it's, you've moved on from that a little bit. Do you ever feel that kind of sense of uneasiness?
Look, to be honest with you, it is one of those things. I do try to be mindful of the things that consume like my mind and my thoughts. And I am a firm believer in terms of what you expose yourself to, like, has a heavy impact on, the way that you think and all of those kinds of things. So I do, look, for some reason, it's easier for me to digest written. I feel the same heaviness that you talk about when I watch these kinds of things, which I still love watching. But I have to monitor the amount because I can see the impact that has on me if I ingest too much of it. Same as podcasts, like true crime podcasts. I love a good true crime podcast, but I have to monitor the amount that I ingest because outside of my conscious and into my subconscious, I feel a heaviness, even though in my conscious I feel fine. And I love ingesting that kind of stuff. It's so interesting to me. And it's interesting you say a sense of control because I was doing a personality test yesterday with some mates, and one of the things that it said about me is like loves to be in control of my environment. So it's interesting that you said that today. So maybe that is one of those things. But in terms of that kind of stuff, I just am aware of myself. And I think as you get older, you learn more about yourself. And for me, I know that ingesting it in written form is just enough for me where I don't feel heavy about it. But if I watch or listen to too much of it, I do. And then it's always good to balance it out with surrounding yourself with really positive, uplifting, healthy content and pumping that with yourself. So I must say, for me, on a ratio of ingesting information, I would say that 80% of it is really positive and the other 20% is this. So it's still far outweighs.
I think that's so fantastic and such a great point, especially when you think about books, because written content, we can only go as far as our imagination lets us, whereas podcasts or definitely, this for films and TV shows, we have really no control over kind of what we're seeing there. Like we're able, when we read a book, to just create what we want with our mind's eye.
Yeah, that's
and you're able to kind of get to the limits of that and not go beyond what you feel comfortable with because it's your own mind.
Yes, absolutely.
I think it's also important just to, as you said, just look at our motivations also to consume this content. If you're looking at for pure escape and enjoyment from your own life and you recognize that, I think that's fine. And if you are unsure, I think it's also important to like talk to other people in your life that read. If you have other readers that are Christian, they probably have thought about this stuff a whole bunch as well.
For sure.
And also pray. Like talk to God. Talk to him about psychological thrillers. I'm sure he'd be thrilled. We can pray and talk to God about anything. So I don't think there's any right or wrong answer here. Do what's best for you.
Yeah.
But I definitely think psych thrillers, they do have a place, and that's proven by the amount that they sell.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was such a pleasure getting to chat to you, Elle. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Of course. I had so much fun. Thank you for inviting me.
I think just read what you love and be a good person and don't become the characters in these novels. I think that's the takeaway message of today. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Hope Book Club. As mentioned at the start of the episode, you can join us over on Facebook for more bookish chats. You can search for Hope Book Club, and I'd love to know your thoughts on whether you yourself read psychological thrillers. Yes or no? Why or why not? As Christians, do you believe that we should or should not? There was a discussion right now in the Facebook group. Simply search for Hope Book Club to share your thoughts. We'd also love this podcast to reach more people. So the way you can help with that is to rate, review, subscribe, share it with a bookish friend, perhaps one that loves psychological thrillers. Until then, stay reading. Here is a quote for your week. A word after a word after a word is power. That one's from Margaret Atwood. Catch you next time.